Welcome everyone. We're so glad to have you with us today at our second installment of Strengthen with Standards as we go through one section at a time through the standards and really in FRYSC language with FRYSC examples with FRYSC folk. And so we have Russell Jones and Melissa Newton here to bring us the second installment. And last week we did family centeredness. This week we're going to be doing family strengthening. A couple of quick announcements while people are getting joined in. First of all, we've gotten a question, and I apologize if you've asked it and I haven't answered back in an email. But we got questions about this series in particular that if I miss an episode, but I want to come back and watch it later, can I still get the PD credit? And we've resisted doing that with the previous Wednesday webinars because a big piece of the Wednesday webinar is the interaction and the things that happen in breakout groups, and there's no way for us to record that piece. But for these teaches, the 5 episodes on the standards, so last week, this week, and the next 3 weeks, we are going to allow people to watch these from the archives. So if you missed last week, you can still go back and watch it. We're going to send out a form, a self-evaluation form to fill out, kind of like the exit survey, so that we can count that you did it. And then absolutely you can go ahead and you can claim it. And then one more piece of business that we're going to do before we start, and that is our welcome message to kick off this series from Melissa, from Melissa Goins and Marianne Jennings. So without further ado, let me turn it over to them for another brief intro.
Hello, FRYSC coordinators. Welcome to our Standards webinar series. I am Melissa Goins, Director of the Family Resource and Youth Services Center program.
And I am Marianne Jennings, Assistant Director of the Family Resource and Youth Services Center program.
So Marianne and I wanted to take a few minutes today to talk to you about why we felt that having standards, adopting standards, was an important accomplishment for our program. The development of standards is a significant accomplishment for our field of practice, putting us in the same league as healthcare, childcare, education, and other fields that have long had standards. It's important for all of us to spend our time and efforts doing what works, and our adopted standards of practice include proven strategies for family support. Our standards were adopted by our national organization, the National Family Support Network, in 2013 from a team of leaders in our field that came together and agreed that we need some consistent practices that work across our field. Family Resource and Youth Services Centers had our own representative, Mike Denny, at the table in the developmental phase, and Randall Campbell, a FRYSC coordinator in Western Kentucky, had a seat at the table for the recent update, which allowed us to have input and ensure that it relates back to the FRYSC mission and vision. Local flexibility is always going to be a strength of the FRYSC program. Having standards of practice for all FRYSCs will help ensure that while we may meet the needs of families and students differently, we will all be committed to quality.
One of the ways that we've discussed using the standards of quality is with your advisory council. Our advisory councils serve many roles. They're advocating, they're working with accountability, and they're guiding our program. The standards of quality support your advisory council in all of these areas. They give the advisory council language to share information about not only the work that you're doing, but that your center is performing at a high level. Discussing your programming in the terms of the standards of quality allows your council to hear about your work and to help determine areas of growth. And finally, the standards of quality help guide discussions about your school community, their needs, and how the center can meet them. So when we look at the next steps of our standards of quality, we're going to continue to work them into the fabric of their program. They're a part of what Family Resource and Youth Services Centers do. Quality standards are not intended to be a one-time event or a one-time discussion. They're ongoing with our Family Resource and Youth Services Centers. Our centers base our programming on core and optional components and that local need that Melissa talked about. That's what we do in our centers. And then our quality standards build on that. And we're focusing on how we accomplish our goals and at high levels.
So thank you for participating in this webinar. Just you being here shows your commitment to the growth of your center and your practices as a coordinator for the Family Resource and Youth Services Center program.
All right, everyone. Well, like Melissa Goins just said, we are so glad that you are here with us today. And Russell and Melissa, we've got 39 folks joining in, and there's still a trickle coming in. So with that, take it away.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here and get us started. So just give me 1 second. It's always fun to try to pick which exact window to share so that you get the right one and you're not showing stuff that doesn't make any sense. Okay, I think this is going to be the right one that we need. So we are going to be talking about the the family strengthening section. Give me 1 second here. I lost my notes window.
Melissa, while you're doing that, do you want to launch the poll?
Just 1 second.
Okay.
So I wanted to go through the objectives first before we do that. So what we want to accomplish today is understanding the key terminology and concepts of the family strengthening section. And Greg mentioned this in his introduction, and that is bringing some of the FRYSC terminology in to the standards so that it's easier for us to apply it to the work that's happening in the centers. We want to work on that today in the family strengthening section, and we want you all to gain some knowledge on how to apply the standards in your work. And so, like Greg said, we're going to launch a poll to gauge your confidence level in this particular section at the beginning of this training, and then we'll come back at the end and see if we've moved the needle a little bit for this particular section. So Greg, if you want to launch that first poll for us.
Sure thing.
Do I need to stop sharing?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
Russell, can you see it? Can you see the poll?
Okay.
Yep. Got a thumbs up. All right. And while this is up, if you guys want to continue talking, it'll take just a minute.
Sure.
All right. I've got the first response in. On some technology, you may have to go down to the bottom right corner and click on the ... to see the polls, but they should pop up. They're coming in now. We've got 30%. We've got a pretty good looking bell curve coming up here. Tanya would approve of the data.
That's always a good thing.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. All right, I'll leave it up just another minute. We're up to 68%. And we understand if you're eating lunch and you need to be off camera if you've got kids right behind you. But if not, we'd love to have you join in and come on camera if that's possible. And if you can't, please make liberal use of the chat box. We really want you to be engaged. Don't hesitate with questions or comments. All right, I've got 73% in and they seem to have slowed down. So I'm going to end that poll and here are the results.
All right.
So
we've got a couple of folks who haven't had the training yet, presented to their advisory council. That's great. The 6 folks who've done that, and some limited ways, found some limited ways to apply that. That's a good number for that. So, and 7 that are excited about the standards.
However, we do not have a 5 that wanted to volunteer to help you to present today.
Well,
and that's okay.
I looked through the participant list. I know there's at least one person that should be a 5 on there. I just don't think she answered the question.
All right, excellent. Well, we appreciate you guys letting us know, where our starting point is. And like I said, hopefully once we get through some of this material and we have some opportunities to ask questions, hopefully we'll move the needle on that a little bit. All right, so we're going to move on to our next and turn it over to Russell.
All right.
Hang on. There we go.
Okay, so the first thing we want to look at when we look at standards is we're looking at basically how the standards are designed, just so you have a general knowledge of what's kind of what you're looking at when you look at the book. And then we're going to look at how you determine movement. So looking at the way that the standards are actually designed is it goes as such. It goes section, standard, indicator pair. That's the way everything is. That's the way it's designed. So there are 5 sections to the standards. Then I believe there are 17 standards with 27 indicator pairs. So a lot of the standards have multiple indicator pairs. Now, with the rewrite, as you heard Melissa talk about a minute ago, Randall Campbell, a coordinator in Region 1, was part of that group. And there are some changes. For everybody that has been here, excuse me, for everybody that has been here and been on and has been trained on the standards, there are some changes coming. There are some significant things that have changed. And as we go throughout the day, we're going to let you know some of those things as you go along. But they have actually taken away a couple of standards and a couple of indicator pairs. So we just want you to know that those changes are coming. And they're trying to make everything a little easier and make it flow a little better. So that's really it with the standards. The other part with the standard is you have to know what the elements are. You have to know what those elements are, because that's how you're going to determine what your movement is knowing those elements. And for this particular section, we're looking at 3 elements. A lot of times coordinators that I've talked to, they get kind of confused of, well, I think what I'm doing is high quality, but how do I know for sure? Well, the way you know for sure is if it contains something that's in those elements. If it contains whatever that element is, then yes, it can be high quality. Those elements that we're talking about are formal structure, staff training, and family partnership. Staff training and family partnership are very honest. They're very self-explanatory. They really are what they say. Family partnership means when you partner with families when you make decisions. Staff training truly means you have the training that you need to be able to do your job, to do your job well. And also it means that family partnership can also mean, staff training can also mean that it's the people you work with. So if you are blessed enough to have staff that work in your center, if you have an AmeriCorps member, those kind of people that work with you, that can be your staff. Your advisory council can be considered your staff. The teachers in the building that help you do the programs that you do can be your staff. So when we're talking about staff training, it doesn't necessarily mean just people paid with FRYSC funds. It can mean a wide range of people. But I think for today in particular, we're talking mainly about training for you. Other sections of standards, it may move. The one element that kind of throws people off a lot of times is formal structure, because we get hung up on the wrong word. We get hung up on the word formal as opposed to the word structure. I think sometimes when I think of formal, I know a lot of schools a lot of districts have just had prom. So I think of formal. I think of people getting dressed up. I think of all this big elaborate something that's going on. That's not necessarily the key thing. The key thing to that is the structured piece. We have a structured plan. We have a plan in place to complete our activities with the resources that we have on hand. And it can be repetitive over time. It can happen again and again and again. If you do this great event, it could be high quality, but can you do it again? Can you pull it off again? Can you do that same thing again and again? And as you go throughout the standards, just kind of think of those things as you go through. Think of those as you look at your examples.
And I'll just make a note on this slide and on some of the other slides, you will see links here. So on this particular slide, we have a link down here to the standards glossary. And we're not necessarily going to go through those during this training, but those are there as a resource for you. And these will be, this slide deck will be uploaded to the website where the video will be archived. So just be aware that sometimes we're not going to, click on this link, but it's there for you as a resource.
So today we're looking at the family strengthening section. And within the family strengthening section, we have 3 standards, and each of those standards has 2 indicator pairs. Now, what is family strengthening? When we think about it, like, it's building those protective factors within family members over time. It's building on that strengthening families protective factors piece that we've been talking about for years and years. It's embedding that into the families. It's supporting the cognitive, social, emotional, and physical development that families have. And then it's us as staff working with families to support their development. Not the way we see it, but their development, the way they have it. It's their input, not ours. Again, remember, think back to the training and think about what these are based on. We are not the experts on somebody's family. They are. They are the experts. So how do we work with them in partnership? So I believe we're going to do a little activity.
Yes, and there's nothing like test. Greg will get this. We're going to test in production, Greg. We're going to actually try something out live with everybody. So we're going to do a word cloud activity. I'm sure you guys have seen these where you all get a link and you type the words in and it comes up on the screen. But we're using a new resource for us called WooClap. And so if you haven't heard of that before, I would encourage you to go look at it. It's a free where you can do like polls and those kinds of things. But WooClap doesn't limit the number of participants. We were using, what was the other one we were using before? I can't remember. Poll Everywhere. Yes. But it limited the number of people who could actually respond. So our word clouds only had 25 words in them, which, that's not good. We want everybody to be able to participate. So we're doing WooClap. So let me stop sharing and get over to the right screen. So give me 1 second here. And I'm going to put a link in the chat. We'll see. Hopefully this will work. All right, you're always... Okay, so everybody should have that link.
Melissa didn't post there was a link.
It didn't. So if you highlight it, again, trying this all on the fly, and paste it into a browser, it does work. It says, raise your head. There's no vote in progress at the moment. So maybe there's something you have to do to initiate. Oh, there it goes. Okay, so what does strengthening families look like in relation to working with families in your community? Let me see if I can turn that into a link in the chat.
Okay, and then let me...
Here they come.
Yeah.
There we go. Now it's a link.
Thank you.
Russell, whatever you did, it came in not as a link too.
Yeah, I didn't mean to do it. I just hit the wrong button. I just messed up, hit the wrong button.
And is everybody seeing that screen now kind of populating in with the words?
Yep.
Oh, cool. Okay, yay. Thanks for being our guinea pigs, everybody who's on the... All right. So again, WooCloud does offer polls and all kinds of different resources that you can use. WordCloud just happens to be one of them. So, and like I said, that it does have a free account that gets you limited access to things like the WordCloud and polls. It limits the number of things that you can do, that you can have built at a time. But
I like the fact that the word listening is the biggest word on the screen. I do like that.
Focused, relationship.
We got some good answers.
Yeah.
Support groups, encouragement and support. Those are always good programs. Advocate focus.
Advocate. Yeah. Encouragement. I like that one.
Trust, hope. Very good.
Okay. All right. So
I got a nice screenshot of that too.
Oh, good. Thank you, Greg. Right. We're going to switch back here to the slide deck.
Okay. So I think we're ready to go into the first standard. So family strengthening number 1. So what you want to do is I'm going to give you some pieces of advice. So looking at the indicator that you see on the screen, it will look similar to what is in your, it looks similar to some things that are in your book. But what you want to see is the number 1 change that made it into the standards. The number 1 change is where you see the word foundational in your, or the word minimum in your book. Please change that to the word foundational. That is a much more accurate depiction, and it doesn't have the negative connotation that the word minimum has. And thank you to Greg and to Randall Campbell for issuing and making this a thing with the national network. So that is a fantastic change. So that should be the first thing the first change that you see from the new standards is that the word minimum is gone. It has been replaced with the word foundational. Now, looking at the center is what we have in front of us. Your book will actually say the word program. When it refers to center, it usually says the word program will or program does. Anytime you see the word program, this is not in the new changes, but this makes it a little easier for us. We use the word program differently than the way they use the word program. They use the word program to refer to your center as a whole. For the most part, we genuinely refer to a program as an activity. Okay, so we're looking at your center as a whole. So anytime you see the word program, change it with the word center, and that might make things make a little more sense. For all of our YSC people that are with us today, whenever you see the word family this, family here, family there, we want you to work with your families. We encourage you to work with your families, but we know reality is you are dealing with your students so much more than you are dealing with your families. I had one youth service center coordinator say that she could not do this, that she didn't understand this, didn't make any sense to her because she didn't have enough contact with her families for it to make sense. So if you're a YSC and you see the word family, insert the word student and see if it makes more sense. Insert the word student and see if those things make more sense. And it might help you get through. It might make things a little easier when dealing with the standards. Okay, so looking at the first one. The center recognizes and affirms family strengths and resilience and is responsive to their concern. So the indicator says that staff members work with family members in relationships based on equality and respect to identify their strengths, resilience, and resources. So as you're looking at that indicator, there's some questions that you need to ask yourself. 1, do you identify families' strengths? Do we maintain confidentiality? Do we celebrate families? So some different examples that you may have. Having a family lead a craft night. Having your advisory council, if you train them on what confidentiality is. If you see family strengths as a family unit, if you see their strengths as a family unit, do we look at the strengths? Remember, those are all foundational things. So, well, as we go through, I want you to think about something here. I want you to put something into the chat box for me. I want you to put in, we're going to do a chat blast, and I'll give you a countdown in just a moment. But think about this question for just a second. How do you celebrate families or students? How do you celebrate those families and students? How do you celebrate their strengths, resiliency, resources. How do you celebrate those things? So I'm gonna give you a countdown. When I get to we're gonna go a 3, 2, 1 countdown, and when I get to 1, I want you to just blast everything into the chat. Type in as quick as you can. Hit enter. So 3, 2, 1, go. Incentives and shout outs, okay? Snack baskets, movie nights, tickets to district performances, sporting events, okay? Recognize accomplishments, character awards at PTA meetings. I like that. That's pretty good. That's new. I'd never heard that one. Positive postcards, highlighting a parent, who made good choices. Okay, participating in a group. That's good. Just giving certificates, calling home to a parent, nothing like that into that one-on-one communication, because when they hear from the school, it's usually a bad thing. Like hearing the good stuff. Rewards, terrific kids, calls, good, family nights, grandparents day. It's good stuff. Reward tickets, grandparents day. Verbal and written praise, using an incentive. We need to celebrate these people. We need to celebrate things and think about how all those things are, and that is foundational. That is foundational quality. That's something that we should all be doing. So how do we take it and move it into high quality? We have to have formal structure around it. There must be a formal plan. So the high quality indicator is that staff members working with family members in relationships based on equality and respect implement a formal process to assess, document family strengths, resilience, and resources. So what kind of a process? So this is the question to think about. What process do you have to identify a family's strengths? How do you do that? Questions on a need survey or on a referral form. Formal process, a formal structure can be so simple that it can be one question on a referral form of where I'm going to document, how am I going to document all these strengths that we see in a family. Now, this does not have the staff training piece, but training is always considered a formal structure. Anytime you do anything. So if you talk to your advisory council about how to look for strengths, if you talk to teachers about how to see strength as opposed to just seeing weakness. My wife is a teacher. I love that teachers do a great job. I love what they do, but a lot of times some of our teaching brethren, they tend to see the negative side of things. They tend to look a little negative. Help them see the positive. Help them see the good.
Okay, we're going to move on to the second indicator pair for this standard. So again, the center recognizes and affirms families' strengths and resilience and is responsive to their concerns. And the foundational quality indicator for the second part of this is that centers engage families to identify their concerns, priorities, and resource needs. It links families with service providers, informal supports, and other families to address them. And this is, again, this is foundational quality. We got to train ourselves to use the word foundational instead of minimum. So this is the foundation for this type of work. And I feel like that our FRYSC centers, this is what we excel at. This is what you guys are the best at. So some questions to ask around this indicator is, do we ask the right needs survey questions? And do we link families to the services they need or just the ones they ask for? And that's an interesting question there for sure. Do we provide opportunities for families to connect together? So I like the last sentence on this indicator, and that it links. It says it links families with service providers, informal supports, and other families, right? So providing that opportunity for families to come together to support each other. And some examples of this foundational quality are transportation issues where families carpool together, or talking to families about what they need. the element, what moves a center from the foundational quality to a high quality center is formal structure and family partnership. And so the high quality indicator is that the center implements a formal process to gather information about families' concerns, priorities, and resource needs. The center partners with the families to set goals, and it formally facilitates access to services and activities and has a system to provide follow-up support. And we have a good system in place, I think, for this, in that the needs assessments occur, and you all do your program planning. And so there is a formal process that or a formal structure that we do have in place for some of this already. And I know some of you guys have probably gone through the needs assessment training. So, and again, even though training isn't in that arrow, I think it is a very important piece of this. So some questions to ask around this are, do we talk with families about their needs and goals? Do we hand out, or do we want to see change? Do we have a way to follow up on services provided? And some examples are family form detailing family identified needs, strengths, and goals. Christmas assistance, and how many times are we going to serve the family? Using a referral form to document follow-up is another example of that. All right, you want me to keep going, Russell? Okay, so the second standard is the center enhances families' capacity to support the healthy cognitive, social, emotional, and physical development of their family. So on this one, the foundational quality is that staff members can demonstrate an understanding of healthy family development. So we ask ourselves, do we and the people we work with understand the stages of development? Do we and the people we work with know the warning signs of abuse and neglect? And so those are just real foundational questions to ask. And some examples of this are families in training component, child development app, ages and stages poster, and student social media use. The element that moves the center from the foundational quality to the high quality is staff training. And so this is where we get into learning and gaining the knowledge of the healthy family development and the stages of development, all those things. You can gain that through training. So we do have a question that I want to ask you guys, and this is kind of serves a dual purpose. One is to get you all thinking about in your center, if this is something that you've experienced or some knowledge that you do have, and then sharing with me what those specific trainings are. So my question for the chat is, have you attended a training that pushed you out of your comfort zone? And if so, what was it? So remember, the staff training on this is the element that moves you from foundational quality to the high quality indicator. So I'm real interested to hear about your training experience and if you've gone to something that has pushed you out of your comfort zone a bit. So we're going to do another chat blast. So I'm going to give you a countdown like Russell did before with the 3, 2, 1. But I want you to put in the chat blast a training that you attended that you felt had some real significant impact on you. If you went to something like that, and what was it? All right. So everybody get ready in the chat. And 3, 2, 1. Choosing the best and reducing the risk curriculums and suicide training. What you can learn from a sex offender. That one did push you out of your comfort zone. Implicit bias training. That's good. Bridges out of poverty. Yeah, Jennifer, definitely those trainings that are on those subjects that we might be uncomfortable with, like sex abuse training or sex offender training. those definitely do push you a little bit in the ACEs training. Yeah. Okay, so moving on, trauma-informed care. Yeah, that's another good one. Thank you. The high quality indicator is that center provides staff members with opportunities to strengthen their knowledge and skills for supporting healthy family development. And questions to ask: do we seek out training that can affect our work, or just what makes us comfortable? So really, taking a deep look at what you might find as a gap in your knowledge and seeking out that training. Examples, topics such as self-harm, suicide, equity, human trafficking, some of these that you all mentioned, and training or inviting your advisory council members to train on hard topics.
So, Melissa, can I share an example real quick of just
Yes.
kind of how that worked, how that looked?
Yes.
So, as a coordinator, like right before the summer, I think it was at VOV because it was the summer right before I took this job. They had a training on self-harm, and I am a very emotional person. For anybody that knows me, I can be very emotional. I will cry at the drop of a hat, probably. But during that training, I was so uncomfortable. It was an hour and a half training, and I probably cried for an hour and 15 minutes. It was just the most, it just totally messed with my head. And I was like, why am I here? I even sent a picture of myself in the room to my school guidance counselor. I was like, what am I doing in this room? I don't know. What am I doing here? So I sent it to her, and then I thought about it like for weeks after it happened. But when school started, a week into school, we had a kid that started cutting herself. I was like, this is why I did the training. This is why it's important to reach out and do those go to those type of trainings so that we know how to offer the help that the kid needs at the time.
Yes, that's a really good example. And just, from where I sit, there are so many training opportunities, and it could be because that's what Greg and I focus on there, are training opportunities. But I feel like that there's so much available to the coordinators out there, to you guys out there, that you do need to spend some time to think about, like I said, where the gaps are, and what kind of needs you have, and maybe branch out a little bit and seek out some topics that maybe you haven't pursued before. So, okay.
All right. So the second indicator pair, 2.2 for standard number 2, the foundational quality indicator, says that staff members can demonstrate an understanding of healthy family development. So do we share with families what development looks like? Do we refer families to community groups to help meet their needs? And again, at a foundational quality, I know that's something that y'all do all the time. So it looks like helping parents understand how to talk to their kids. And on the flip side, have you ever had a student, if you're at a YSC, have you ever had a student come in to say, I cannot talk to my parents, I can't deal with these people, I can't talk to my teachers, I can't talk to whoever? Part of our job is to say, okay, this is how you need to communicate, this is how you need to talk to them. Those are kind of some of the examples of ways that we do this at a foundational level. Using a newsletter to just share information about like healthy relationships, informing parents about proper development. I think of as a YSC or as an FRC, I think of the families and training component. I think of, do they know how their kids should develop? When you're talking 0 to 4, do they know how they should develop? Then, especially if you're at a YSC, if you're at a high school that has teen parents, do they know why they develop that way? Do they know the best ways to do things? Those are things we do at a foundational level that we do all the time. So now add formal structure to it. You add formal structure to it, taking it to the high quality indicator. The high quality indicator says the center is designed to deliver activities that support the healthy development of families. So we have something in place that does this. What type of trainings do we give parents? Do we offer classes on communicating with other people? Do we ever let our students talk to people different than themselves? You know, we can look around and we can see there are differences in all of us. Do we ever make those connections? Do we ever put people together and let them just connect in a way that is very meaningful? Providing workshops on those relevant topics we talked about in the beginning, providing workshops on those things, because so many times people say, oh, well, that's not an issue. That's not an issue here. That's not an issue there. I guarantee you that it is an issue. Regardless of what the topic is, somebody is going through it. Somebody is dealing with stuff. Do we promote activities that talk about physical activity? Do we promote physical activity of the whole family? Walking clubs, yoga clubs, anything that you can think of like that a whole family can participate in. Do we do those things? Do we have that formal structure in place to give those kind of opportunities to the family? Because I think about like my area, I think where I am, I have a son. He just turned 7. He has zero interest in sports, none, zero interest. And in our area, if you are a boy and you don't like playing sports, there are no opportunities for much of anything. That's the only opportunity. Are we providing other opportunities for kids to do things, to be physically active?
Right, we're going to move on now to Standard 3. The center recognizes families as significant resources for their own family members and each other. And so our foundational quality for this is that the center recognizes the importance of engaging multiple family members and encourages their participation in center activities. So do we ask families who their close family members are? You know, do we get that information? Do we find out, who's living in the house or who lives next door or their family members in the same community? And do we know and ask about the whole family? You know, not just mom or dad or mom and dad, but maybe grandma, grandpa, aunt, and uncle. Or, family is defined in a lot of different ways these days. So you may not, be a blood relative. I'm an aunt to a couple of folks who, their parents aren't my siblings, but I'm Auntie M, to several kids. So, asking about that extended family is foundational.
Looking at kids, also looking at your students, especially as a YSC, looking at them, and it's not only their family, find out who the important friends are and find out who those people are, because those are the ones that if you get them involved, then you start seeing more people be involved. Find out who the important kids are.
Yeah. And then formal structure is the element that moves us from foundational to a high quality. And that is the center designs and provides activities, events, and services that successfully engage those multiple family members. Sorry, I'm losing my voice for some reason. So questions, do we intentionally engage identified family members, and do we make sure to bring the whole family? So, being welcoming to, that extended family, if that's the case. So identifying, engaging important family members, bringing in those multiple family members for an activity, engaging the whole family in whatever's happening at the center. And Russell, I'll turn it over to you.
All right. So we are going to look at the last indicator pair, which is 3.2 of the third standard. So the foundational quality indicator says that the center facilitates opportunities for families to build social connections with each other for resource sharing and mutual support. So do we provide time for families to interact with each other? Do we provide some type of support group? So like a grandparent support group, incarcerated parents support group, a positive image group, an all pro dad group, any of those kind of groups that we provide, are we providing those? Are we making those meaningful? I can remember back to where it says provide time for families to interact with each other. I can remember back to a grandparent support group that we had, that it was my turn to host. It was our center's turn to host. So we had 4 speakers lined up. We were ready to go and everything was ready. And 10 minutes before we were ready to go, 3 of the 4 people called and canceled. So we were sitting there looking like, now what are we going to do? So we just set up basically just some ideas of people to just come and just let them talk to each other, just let them interact. And it ended up being one of the best ones that we had. It ended up being one of the best programs we had. They liked it so much, so that because they could make connections with other people. That's the point. So we take that and now add in family partnership. So the center facilitates families to create their own opportunities to build social connections with each other for resource sharing and mutual support. So I want you, again, we're going to do another chat blast. I want you to go ahead and start typing your answer to this question in the chat box. Type it into the chat box right now. I want you to say, how do we let parents lead? How do we let parents lead? Or how do we let students lead? How do we let them lead in our center? How do we let them lead? So I hope you're typing that answer into your chat box, and we're going to give you a countdown. 3, 2, 1, go. That's what they say through advisory and PTA. Students take leadership positions in clubs. Have a dad lead All Pro Dad. I am so glad, whoever said that, I'm so glad you said that. Advisory council. Students lead the Veterans Day program. Advisory council chair. Student leaders. Advisory council again. Yes, those are definite ways. Grandparent support group. How do we let them lead? PBIS. Advisory council. Yes. We must let them lead. Parent cafes, AmeriCorps, great answers. How do we let them lead? Born learning, very good. How do we lead? Do we actually use our advisory council to help plan events? Do we use them? Do we use them the way that we need to use them? Because if you're having a program, doesn't it make sense to let the people that are coming to the program help lead the program? Such as using grandparents to plan a grandparents' day. I mean, I can guess what they want, but they can tell me. Letting parents lead a cooking, art, whatever their heart's desire is, let them lead a class. Let them lead a workshop. Let them lead something. Let them feel like they can give back. Now, I'm glad somebody mentioned All Pro Dad, because I do want to share a story with you. So when I was an assistant in a center, we started running All Pro Dad. It was great. It was wonderful for us. We had about 100 people that would come every time we had it. It was great. And I stood up in front and I did the lead and I talked. I was the assistant. I wasn't the coordinator. I was the assistant, but I did all the talking. I did all the leading. I put them where they needed to be. I did all that stuff. It was wonderful. When I left to go be a coordinator. The other coordinator was a lady. She was a great lady. And she said, I can't lead this, but I don't want it to stop. So she ended up recruiting a parent to lead and do what I was doing. Coordinator did all the work. She still did all the behind the scenes stuff. She did make sure everything was right. But the parent just got up and led and talked and shared while they did their thing. It went from 100 to 300 by the parent leading. It was the most amazing thing that I had seen by just that one simple change. And a lot of people told her, well, we came because we knew that, who it was leading. We knew that they were talking, so we wanted to come and hear them. And it just kind of kept building and building. So just know that, that is important. And parents do notice when you let them lead. Kids notice when you let them lead. I like the idea somebody had a minute ago that they lead your clubs. That's wonderful. Those things, those are moving at a high quality. That's when we can see the needle move, is when they start leading.
So we have come to the end of our formal presentation. I would like to take some time to do some questions. We've got about 10 minutes left, so I think and Russell, you can override me on this because we didn't talk about this when we planned it. I think that questions now would be great instead of like a breakout group. Breakout groups, if that's okay with you, if we just want to take some questions and then we can launch our final poll to see if we, have moved the needle any, and then share our exit ticket. So we've got 42 participants, so you can type your question in the chat, or if you want to come off mute and ask a question, I think that's fine as well.
Are the slides available? Yeah, they are, correct? Yes, they will be. All of this will be available when it comes to like on the training page where the Wednesday webinars are housed.
In fact, the archive of the session plus the PowerPoint and anything else that you guys deem will be actually on the site this evening. So if you have somebody who missed it, let them know. They can go right away and it'll be there. And you can mention that piece about still being able to get PD credit.
So one thing I do want to say too, a little bit about the changes that have happened. If you look at the examples that are in your book, if you have the book in front of you, look at those examples, they are very much community-based examples. I mean, there is no question they are community-based. But the new standards, the new issue when it comes out, thanks to all 856 FRYSC members that are there, we make up almost 1/3 of the national network. That's going to be Melissa's new nickname. I just can't get it out. I can't get it out of my head now. That's going to be your new nickname. But thanks to them, the new standards have school-based examples, school-based scenarios when we talk about things.
So there's a great question from Michelle in the chat. Does anyone have any ideas, input on handling a parent guardian, on honoring or having a parent that helps lead, but then makes a poor choice that others know about? How do you handle that situation?
How would you handle it how would you handle it if it was a teacher or your principal? It's the same, it would be the same kind of scenario. I mean, if people make mistakes,
our district though would probably handle more of that type of situation. And I'm asking this because it's happened and it wasn't a huge issue, and we came at it from the perspective of, nobody's perfect and so forth, but it is something that has made me a little less ready to jump in there and do it again. Because we all make mistakes and we're all going to have that opportunity to maybe make a poor choice going forward. And so, when you hold someone up a little bit and congratulate them on what they're doing right, you hope that they continue to do that, but that's not always the case.
Yeah. And that is just something that's hard. And that's something that we never want to think about. It is reality. Because like you said, all of us could make one bad decision. We're all one bad decision away from not being where we are. So, and it's just, that happens. And realistically, I don't necessarily know. I know I had a center a few years ago that I had heard about. I wasn't personally associated with them, that somebody stole a lot of money, and it reflected back, and nothing that you did, just something that happened. And it's just, we just got to move and just kind of move forward. Don't let that.
I have to put on my former human resources professional hat on this and say you always want to go back to whatever your policy and procedure is for, if it's a staff, obviously you have something in place for that, but there's probably something for volunteers as well. I would imagine, some kind of an agreement that's made with a volunteer for the school Yeah, so a background check, Melanie's saying there, but if you don't have a volunteer policy for like a code of conduct or something, that might be something that you look at for gosh, even district wide. I would think that would be useful, but certainly I find it comforting to be able to step back to decisions that people who might be a little smarter than me when it comes to that have made. So look into that, see if you have a like a confidentiality or professionalism agreement, with your volunteers. So.
It was a situation that was very informal. It was just we were trying to honor some parents. And so we honored some parents, and a few of them then made some poor choices. And so our honoring of them was questioned. And of course, then you get into confidentiality. So
right. Oh yeah. So they weren't actually like serving, as like a leader or something. You had just yeah. Well. Yeah, you hope that.
Great answer for that one, but
there's not. Except saying that we were honoring this part of them and not this part of them. I did put the link to the website where we're archiving all of the Wednesday webinars, and just I hope that everybody on here has gone to that Training Hub website. We've got a lot of resources on there, and you can go back and watch all kinds of episodes of Wednesday webinar and lots of other resources as well for you guys.
So I did see another question that came through. Okay. Talked about when will we get new books, new materials and things. That is something you might want to ask your RPM, because everybody will be trained hopefully within the next year, I think is the plan, right? By sometime within the next year, everybody is going to be trained on the new stuff and have to go through the new training. So we'll have everything again, but that will be more of a region specific thing as to when your training actually will be.
And those trainings will largely start out virtually. And they probably will be virtual for quite a while until the National Foundation releases an in-person version of the classes. But then, like Russell said, you'll get your new materials and we will go through those. And you will be recertified, which will be good for several more years. But we're really glad that you're here, because that will still be a pretty formal class. This is a great chance to pull the standards apart and talk about them in our language, our examples. Michelle's question is a great one. That's probably not going to come up in the actual standard certification. So this is the place where the rubber meets the road. So we're really glad you're all here. I did post the approval code, which is good for 1 hour of PD credit, and the exit slip link is there. Please use that before you leave. To give us some feedback on this session.
And while everybody's probably doing that, I will say that there is a national briefing today from the National Family Support Network that's happening in a half an hour. So we'll just have time to run to the bathroom and get back on. But it's my understanding that Governor Beshear is presenting information, and the lieutenant governor is also going to present, maybe one or the other. I'm not sure. Greg, do you know anything
Actually,
else?
I know a lot about that because I edited those videos and stitched them together. So for 3 minutes and 18 seconds, both our governor and our lieutenant governor are going to be addressing that meeting, and they're going to be bragging about FRYSC and what a vital role FRYSC has played in the Commonwealth, especially in responding to pandemic.
So how do we access that? We get so many emails from National Family Support Network that it came through an email and you had to register. So I don't know if at this point, if you can go back and watch that, but we can certainly, I think at the very least, after it's over, we have the governor and the lieutenant governor's message. We can maybe, co-opt that and put that on the website, maybe.
We could even cheat, and instead of going out to Lady Gaga, we could go out to Andy and Jacqueline.
No, we shouldn't do that.
Okay.
Probably not.
Probably not. No, we could after the national briefing is completed. We'll see about making that available, or you could go to the National Family Support Network's website and see if you might be able to still register. I don't know on that, so I know they're registered.
And by the time it's over and we're archiving stuff, I will go ahead and stick that with the webinar. Happy to. Anything else? Any other questions before we sign off for the day? We will be back here in 2 more weeks with part C of the Strengthen Through Standards series. And it will be, and actually I think I have a slide. Maybe not. Yes, it will be Michelle McDonald and myself, and we're going to be talking about the diversity section, which is a section that has changed quite a bit, and it's now diversity, equity, and inclusion. And we will be bringing you that piece in 2 weeks. So please tune back in, and we'll see you back here for that.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate your all's attention this afternoon.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you all so very much.